Hi, I'm Matt Selza, Director of Insight in Los Angeles, and we use Marketing for Good. And today I was going to talk with Marlon here about cause marketing and how nonprofits can partner well with corporations. I was hoping to explain some of the key trends we're seeing in the industry and some ways that nonprofits can benefit from good partnerships with corporations. So one of the important things is for nonprofits to understand that partnering with a corporation is different from asking for a gala sponsorship or for a $5,000 race sponsorship. The idea of a cause marketing partnership or a true partnership with a corporation is that both of you, the nonprofit and the corporation, have things to offer each other. So in the case of the nonprofit, we usually boil that down to three key items. Those would usually be the nonprofit's brand, its audience, and its access. So the nonprofit, rather than thinking about, okay, what is the ask we will make of the corporation, the nonprofit should think first about what assets do we have that would be of benefit to a corporation. Does the nonprofit have 25,000 active members of its volunteer database? Does it have an incredibly engaged board of directors, which would be of true value to the corporate partner? Is there a brand that a nonprofit has in terms of its name, whether it's a national name or a local name that's meaningful, that a corporation would benefit from by being aligned with? And once the nonprofit has an idea of its branding or its audience, then the question is, what does the nonprofit feel comfortable offering in terms of access? So some nonprofits, American Red Cross, American Heart Association, you see their logo or their seal of approval on certain products or certain corporate partners. That's a decision that the nonprofit has made. And on the local level, a good example of how a nonprofit can work together with a local corporation. Some of you may have eaten at a Menchie's frozen yogurt. Menchie's here in Southern California wanted to extend their brand, which is really about smiles. Their loyalty program is called Smilage. And what they wanted to do was work with a nonprofit partner that would help them extend their brand and also do some real good in the world. So they literally interviewed a number of nonprofits, and they selected the Muscular Dystrophy Association, MDA, for a campaign last spring, which essentially was built around the tagline, "It takes 13 muscles to smile, it takes only one muscle to make a difference." And so they offered this at the checkout at each of their locations in Southern California, and they essentially offered this at checkout at each of their locations, about 200 locations nationally, and nationally they raised about $250,000. And they plan to do it again this year, so we look forward to seeing what the results are this year. So it's an example of how a nonprofit can offer itself in terms of, its name. MDA is a well-known, well-respected name, and they also tied well as a partner with what Menchie's was looking to do. But they also really presented themselves as a partner, not as a recipient, please give us this, but as a partner who has their own assets to offer to Menchie's in this case. And there's numerous examples of partnerships like this, but it's that key mindset shift that really is the important difference for nonprofits as they think about partnering with corporations and not just asking corporations for donations. From the corporate side, one important thing to understand is that corporations nowadays are really trying to figure out how to best tell their story, and really for many corporations, marketing has become a question of how to engage their consumers. And when you talk about engagement, stories are probably the best way to engage people. And so nonprofits have a great opportunity to partner because nonprofits generally have the best stories to tell. There's the reason the nonprofit was founded. It's usually a wonderfully heartwarming story about the need that someone saw in the community and the opportunity they saw to address that need. There is the story of how they grew and how they attracted their first 100 volunteers, of their first event, of the first person whose life they saved, or the family that they helped. All those ongoing stories that nonprofits just generally generate in the course of a week or a month, those are really important for a corporation that's trying to tell its story in a way that doesn't sound like we're here to sell you something. So a good example nationally is Subaru. Subaru for years has been talking about themselves as a car company that cares, and they've had a real good track record of supporting environmental causes, and Subaru fans generally are really Subaru fans. They're devotees, almost cult-like. For the last number of years, Subaru has tied that into, buy a Subaru, will donate $250 to the cause you choose. And they generally have 5 good national nonprofits, mostly environmentally based, and the buyer of the Subaru gets to choose. And Subaru attributes that to a double-digit increase in sales, especially at a slower time of the year, around the spring when they usually do this sort of sale. But they use the nonprofits and their brands and their stories as a way to connect Subaru, which is essentially selling cars, to the important story of supporting the planet and caring for the earth. So nonprofits can really think about the stories they have to tell, and those stories themselves can be of value to a corporate partner. One important consideration for both nonprofits and corporations is the question of transparency. A lot of consumers are feeling basically a bit of fatigue or pushback against cause marketing. It seems like every other product on the shelf is, we'll donate a portion of proceeds to charity. And what more and more consumers are looking for is clarity. What does it mean if I buy this product? How much goes to charity, by when, and to what charities in particular? And how can I track this online? Is there a way I can track this online? So what it's important to do is think about from the perspective of the consumer or the person experiencing whatever you're asking them to do as part of this cause marketing partnership. How can they tell what is actually being accomplished by the partnership? Is there some website you can set up that you update on a weekly basis with the amount of money raised for your nonprofit, the amount of school supplies donated to children in need? Is there some way you can show people quickly and easily, here's what your contribution has done for the community, whether it's locally, statewide, or nationally? Those sort of things not only reassure people, but then they also encourage people to share it with their friends and extend the circles that you're going to reach. So rather than just think, how do we get this launched, think about how do we launch this in a way that people can then follow up and really see what impact they're making. Because those campaigns, the ones that show clearly and easily what impact is being made, those are the ones that are being spread virally through Facebook and Twitter, and that's ultimately what you want. You want to make it easy for people to share your story with their friends and their family. So one other thing that's important is that cause marketing, because it is relatively new as a field, it's also able to access all the new technology. So a lot of people are using all the digital and mobile technology that's available, whether it's social media networks or smartphone apps, but people are using some innovative ways to really spread their message. And so I encourage people to think about, well, we can't afford TV, but we can afford to create this campaign on Facebook and focus our attention for 2, 3, 4 weeks and really try to spread to 100,000 followers, or raise $50,000 through Facebook. There's been a number of different efforts that have recently been concluded where people have really raised significant amounts of dollars or grown their volunteer database or just their supporter database in significant ways through a really concentrated effort over a short period of time. So I encourage people, when they're thinking about this, don't think of it as a forever campaign. Starting now and moving on forever, we're going to execute this campaign, but think of it as, let's try something for 3 weeks, see how it does, research and figure out how we can improve it, and then try again 3 months from now with a new effort. So it's essentially something you can keep trying and experimenting with because it is relatively new, so the rules are not set in stone. You can make some of the rules yourself as you go.